It's Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. And today I had to go to town in the morning to get some replacement parts for the old truck. This saga began on Saturday. Actually, this saga began on Friday with my half ton. I went to the city to take honey to the packer and pick up honey there. And you can see that's why the pails are here still in the truck. And the truck is indoors. If the truck is indoors, that could be because it's broken and I need to fix it. And that's the case. So I got to Winnipeg and I picked up my honey. So I only had about 600 pounds, a little more than 600 pounds worth of stuff in the back here. I had some honey. I was going to visit some stores and customers. But shortly after I left the packer, I blew a brake line on the truck. And the way, I don't know if all trucks are made this way. The way this truck is made, from the master cylinder, there's two lines. There's a front and a rear line. And not far from the master cylinder, the front line separates into two lines that go left and right. So if you spring a leak in one of those front ones, then they both go out because there's no way to build pressure. So there's one line, then comes to the back, it comes all the way to the rear axle, then it separates into a left and right configuration there. And again, if one of those left or right spring a leak, then you lose the entire axle. Brakes on the entire axle. The axle doesn't come out of the truck or anything. So that's what happened. It was a very, very slight leak, so I lost rear braking pretty slowly, but if you're losing braking, it's always too fast. It didn't just suddenly, go out. I was very, very careful and didn't really have any problems. I kind of slid up to one stoplight a little bit too much, and so I called my day off at that point. I had a few deliveries to make, and I happened to be beside a Boston Pizza. So I drove in there and parked, and I phoned up my brother and said, "Hey, what you doing? You want me to buy you lunch?" And so he came down. I bought him lunch, and we both had a really good meal there. And then I passed off to him a couple of my deliveries, and then he did those deliveries for me, which is sure a lifesaver. When I make a commitment to make a certain delivery on a certain day to a customer, man, I'll make that come hell or high water, because that's just the way I'm wired. If I say I'm going to do something, then I better darn well do it. So I'm very thankful that he was able to do that for me. Coincidentally, it wasn't long ago, not a month ago. Yeah, I guess it was a month ago. It was almost exactly a month ago. He did exactly the same thing. I was heading to Winnipeg in my 1-ton, and I'd been having that fuel pump problem with the 1-ton for a while. I was just pushing it, and I got to Selkirk. Truck quit. I had to have it towed to mechanic, which is only about 3 blocks away, so it didn't take very long to get over there. But they still charge you full price anyway, and I'm not complaining. I appreciate the guy coming and helped me right away. He's a good guy. So then my truck was at mechanic, and so I phoned up my brother. I said, "Hey, you want me to buy you lunch?" So we had lunch at Boston Pizza again. Had a really nice lunch, and then he brought me home then, and then went back, and I'm an hour from where he lives, so it's a long way. And he did a couple of more errands for me that day that I was the stuff that I was heading out in the 1-ton to do. So I'm very thankful for his help. Very, very thankful for his help. His truck is just about identical to my 1-ton, so it's really nice that if something happens, that I can call him and got a truck to tow a trailer and that kind of thing. So it's really nice. So with the little half-ton, this is what happened. Well, here's a story. This is a 98 Dodge, and this era of truck, this era of Dodge truck particularly, Dodge typically has a pretty strong tailgate on their trucks. My '06 one-ton, not a very strong tailgate at all. But previous to that, unbelievably strong. This tailgate, this tailgate is so unbelievably strong that I actually set. I had about 700 pounds of freight. I put a couple pallets in here, and I had about 700 pounds sitting on this tailgate before I realized that this tailgate support was broken. It didn't break because of the weight. It was broken before. You can see something happened to the sheath, and it just rusted through and fell apart. So I get all this weight on the tailgate, and then I look over here, and this thing's hanging off, and there's one support on this side holding that tailgate up, and most of the weight was actually on this side where the broken support was, and the tailgate was fine. It's just an unbelievable tailgate. You can't flex it even at that. Now, problem is that I've replaced this already. My auto parts store, had a Dorman part. I buy lots of Dorman parts, and they seem to be good parts. But the problem is, it's actually a little bit longer than the OEM part. It's only a $16 part, so not such a huge deal. But I'm going to have to go back and get another one for the other side, so they both, they both come taut at the same time. Because if this one's not taut, and if you lean on the truck even. Like I'm a really heavy guy, and I can't make it go down. There's no flex in this tailgate, even though that's not really supporting it. It's pretty amazing. So that's what my today is mostly consisted of. I run into the parts store. I did a couple honey deliveries while I was in town, a couple more errands. And that's the new brake line. They don't come bent, you just have to measure that up and say, that's 20 inches, I need a 20-inch brake line. Get the right thread fitting on the end, and that's what you do. So, you can go ahead and sort of use this as a pattern to bend this up. You don't want to just bend it, though, because it'll kink. You should have something. I mean, a proper bender is good. I do have one around here somewhere. Proper bender is good, but you can get any kind of a round object. For example, I've bent lots of brake lines on my hammerhead here. So you just hold it and give it a good bend, and it'll go right around in that radius. So it's not rocket science. You don't need expensive benders. I have a handheld one here. It's not really expensive, but I'll try and find it because it works pretty good. So I got to bend that up and crawl under the truck and put it on. The big problem after that is you have to bleed the brakes, and often an old vehicle, the brake bleeder screw is rusted, and it doesn't want to come out. So I'll be dealing with that too after I get the new brake line in. So Saturday, I actually went to town. I took the 1 ton because half ton was in here with a broken brake line. I didn't know what was wrong right away. I had to go under. I think I didn't go under until yesterday to see what was wrong. I kind of, I suspected. I always suspect the brake, what they call a brake hose. And here's terminology. If it's a metal line, and you see this one kind of has a spring wrapped around it. It's just a shield that the OEM they put on there. The ones you buy don't have that. But I was going to tell you that terminology, a steel line is called a brake line. And the rubber line that goes from, say, the wheel to the body, or in this case, the rear axle to the body, it's flexible, that's called a brake hose. So if you go to your parts store and you want the rubber one, you better ask for a brake hose. If it's a rigid metal hose or line, it's a brake line. So hopefully that maybe helps you a little bit. I know it's kind of splitting hairs, but that's absolutely a constant, and parts person will know what you mean. You want a brake hose or you want a brake line. And you can usually get the brake hose. Brake hose is kind of more vehicle specific, so you can actually just go there and buy that hose and install it. Whereas, brake line, typically, I've replaced a lot of brake lines in my life, and I've never actually bought a proper form-fitted, bent-up, ready-to-go brake line. It's always just this. Here's a little bit of trivia. I was talking to somebody last night about brake lines and brakes and stuff. Years ago, not that many years ago, I drove a 1996 Volkswagen Jetta. I was commuting a lot, so I need a little diesel car that got good fuel economy, and it did. It was pretty good. I won't say it was fantastic, but it was a good little car. And I was driving to Winnipeg one day, and somebody turned left in front of me, like oncoming. They were oncoming. They were going to turn left, and well, I know exactly why, but I'm just driving down the street. I was going real fast, but I was going with traffic, 60 kilometers an hour or so. And they turned left in front of me, and I kind of panic stopped. And I hit the brakes on that Jetta so hard that I burst all the brake lines out of it, and I didn't know it. I burst the brake lines, and if you know what a wheel cylinder in it is, it's a little cylinder with pistons in it that activate the drum brakes. I pushed the ends out of the wheel cylinders. I hit that brake pedal so hard and so fast that it pushed all the wheel cylinders, pistons out, and I blew the brake lines out of the car. So I had no brakes, but I didn't know it. And I kept going down the street. And I got to the next intersection, or one way down, but regardless. And I got getting there, and the light turned red, and pedal went to the floor. It had nothing. And so and there was a guy waiting there to turn. So it's a good thing he was on the ball, because I just laid on the horn and sailed right through the intersection. So that was pretty bad. I didn't realize that I had no brakes. I'm driving around. So that was quite something, to see that happen. That I hit the brakes so hard that I blew the brake lines out of the car. And it was the brake lines, not the hoses. So I had to, it cost me $500 to fix my car, because that guy turned in front of me. And, you do things in panic, and you wish afterward, you think, oh, why didn't I write off my old car? Wouldn't even been my fault. Well, he made it home one time. He probably didn't even notice that anything had gone wrong. And that's too bad, because, I could have had a serious collision, and it took me quite some time and $500 to fix my car. So that was my brake story. And I was going to say Saturday, I went to a new store I took the 1-ton, and I went to a new store in Selkirk where I set up. It's kind of a little different model. It's kind of like a permanent maker's market. And so I buy a shelf, and they sell my product and take a cut. It's kind of a consignment situation. So I don't know if it'll fly, but I'm going to be marketing that store, and they're going to be marketing, and we'll see. We'll give them a few months, and we'll see if they can make a go of it. So that was Saturday. Sunday, I kind of did just indoor business and stuff all day. And then Monday, what did I do on Monday? Monday, I worked on my truck a little bit, worked on my urns as well. So I'll be putting that video out. It might be one of the last, because they're really coming down to the end. And so that was Monday. And then that takes us to today. Went to town, like I said, got my car parts, truck parts, and now I got a truck to fix. So I'll try and show you a little bit about it. Not very interesting, and it's under the truck, so it's kind of cramped quarters and not the greatest viewing angles and whatnot. So I will do what I can. And here's something. I want to show you this. This is you have a regular combination wrench. You probably know what that looks like. It's kind of shaped like that on the end, and kind of thing. It's got a round on one end, and it's C-shaped on the other end. Well, this is called a line wrench, and it's made exactly for things like this. Because if you put a combination wrench, you can't put a box end wrench on that, because you can't get it around there, because it's connected to something. And if you put it on with a box wrench, then you got to leave the wrench on the car, because you can't get it off of there. So if you put a an open-end wrench on that, you have a pretty good chance of spoiling that wrenching surface there. So they make a special thing. It's called a line wrench. So it's kind of like a box end wrench with a slot in it. So you can just slide the line wrench over the line, and then that fits on the fitting to grip it. It grips it way better than an open end wrench, and far less chance of ruining your fastener. So anyway, line wrench. If you're going to be doing any work like that, invest in a little set of line wrenches. They're not expensive. I don't think they're hard to find. They're kind of a standard thing, but you might have to look around and ask for them or something. But that's what it's called, line wrench. Okay, got to get out of the truck. And after I took the brake lines off the truck and worked on my irons for a while on Monday, then Monday evening, I was invited, Grayson, Wildwood Farms, Wildwood Honey Farms or Bee Farms or something, to join him on his YouTube channel for an hour and talk about bees. Of course, what else? So that was a good time. Had quite a few people watching, and it was nice to talk to him. And he's an interesting young guy. He's got a lot of ambition, and he's pretty smart. So, really, really nice to see young people taking to the bees and putting together a plan as to how they want to do things. And so, yeah, it was nice to talk to him. I've been kind of watching his channel and watching him progress for, a few months anyway. I haven't been aware of him that long. But anyway, that was my Monday evening. So now it's time to crawl in under there and fix my truck. I don't know exactly how I want to go about bending this. You don't have to necessarily bend it exactly the way the factory did, but I'll go into there, see if it fits, see what I think, and then we'll go from there. So you can see the wet stains are always a bad idea. And this looks like that shock absorber has gone bad. And I'm not saying it didn't, but that's brake fluid. There's brake fluid everywhere here. And so you can see the brake hose here. This line here goes to the right wheel. And the line that broke screws in right there. And it's just a short little jaunt over to here where it screws in there. Now this is that little rubber cap just disintegrated. That's the bleeder screw, which is the next pain in my backside, because they're always, by the time you're doing jobs like this, your vehicle's pretty old and everything's rusted up. Okay, I guess that's a 1/4 inch or something. I grabbed that with my vice grip really tight, and I managed to get it so that it would turn. And that's really all I need for now. Just that's a whole lot easier to do before I put that brake line in. So that brake line comes out of there, and it kind of, this is sort of the holder here for it. So I'm gonna have to do this offline. I can't hold the camera and do this same time. Okay, so that's in there tight, and I just bent it around here. It's rigidly held on both ends. It's a very short brake line, so I don't think it needs anything to hold it where it is, because it's very rigid. Important that it's behind the axle here, especially because it doesn't have that coil around it to protect it. And then this was difficult to get this in, but because I can't see it very well at a different angle, so to get that to go in there straight was tricky. But it's in there now. And again, this is OEM brake line, so it has that coil around it. But I think this is going to last as long as the rest of this truck's life. If it doesn't smarten up, that life might not be too long. So now I need a helper to come and help me bleed the brakes. So what you do is, and it's just a little valve. It's got a hole in the end of it if you can't see it. You just turn that out a little bit, and then you have your helper press the brake pedal, and it'll fill the line and everything with new brake fluid. You have to bleed the air out of the cylinder that's in the other side here in the brakes, and the air will come out of here. But the trick is you can't let the air get sucked back into the cylinder. So you have to put your finger on it while they let the pedal up, and then you can take your finger off, and I can press the pedal down to pump fluid, and then cover it with your finger or close it. I find it's effective just to use my finger. You can actually just put your finger on it, and as they press the pedal, it'll squirt out. That makes a mess. Brake fluid is very hard on paint. You don't want to get it on painted surfaces and take the paint right off the car. But there's nothing down here that I'm worried about. So I just put my finger over it, and I'll have my wife get in the truck and press the brake pedal down over and over. Just kind of slow, not real fast. Just kind of press, then release, and press, and release, that kind of thing. A number of times till the air stops bubbling out of this thing. It doesn't take that many times, maybe 4 or 5, maybe a few more, but not like 20 or 50. And the only other thing to watch is you have to fill the brake master cylinder under the hood, the reservoir, with brake fluid. If you don't, you'll run it dry, then you'll pump air into the system, and then you have to bleed all the brakes, or at least the rear, both rear sides, because it'll have air in it. So that's the next thing. I need to wait for my wife to help, so that'll be after she gets off work. It's Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, and spent my day working on this truck yesterday. Got that brake line changed, and that was the easy part. After you work on brakes, you need to bleed them, get the air out of the system, and that's always a pain. Especially in an old vehicle, the bleeder screws get seized up, and I got the rears bled okay, but there got to be air in the front. The brake fluid went low when I was coming home, and I broke off a bleed screw on one of the front calipers. I gave up at that point. And the theory is when you bleed brakes, you start at the farthest one from the master cylinder. So that'll be right rear, and then left rear, and right front, and left front, in that order. And this came off of the right front. So I didn't even attempt the left front because I have to do that one next, right? So I think what's going to happen is this truck needs a brake job anyway. And like, how do you get an easy out or anything? If you drill that out, then you've got metal shavings inside your caliper, and I'm not a big fan of that kind of thing. Generally, if that breaks off, an easy out's going to break off too. So what I'm going to do is just replace that caliper. Yeah, it's a little bit of money, but it needs a brake job anyway. New calipers are never a bad idea, and they're really easy to change as a rule if the brake line comes off okay, which these generally do. So that's what's going to happen. And I do have brakes now, which is good. They just have to be bled, and like I say, front brake job. I don't know about the rears. I hate drum brakes. I don't even want to look at the drum brakes. That sounds like a really good job for my mechanic. So a little talk about my decision to keep the old truck going. You know, I made that decision last summer at one point. I can't remember when, but I talked about it at length on my video. And I justified everything, comparing the payments on a new vehicle against, well, the payments on a new vehicle and the increased insurance costs, because the insurance is not very expensive on this truck. A new vehicle, it would be more than twice as much, I think. So I compared all those costs, and I thought I was driving more than I am, but I'm really not driving all that much. And my fuel savings on a vehicle that gets, well, twice as good a fuel economy would only save me $1,500 or so. And, I can't go into all the numbers again. I did on that video. So with all of that, I determined that I had a cushion of about $5,000 to keep pouring money into this thing. I shouldn't say this thing. I love this truck, and this is the truck I want. I don't want to change, and that's partly why I'm making all this effort. So those kind of calculations make sense. However, I didn't really put a dollar value on what it costs me to spend a whole day trying to fix this truck regularly, and never breaks down at a good time, right? I'm 100 kilometers away and blow a brake line. Well, I did get home, but it's only because it's highway, and I risked it and was very careful. I did have brakes, but very poor. So the inconvenience, and sometimes when they break down, they won't move at all. So now you got to tow trucks, and you got to make other arrangements for your day. Work doesn't get done. So I didn't calculate what it's costing me to do all that, what it's costing me to spend a whole day fixing my truck, because I could have been in here doing production work in my wood shop. I could have been in here processing lumber for customers yesterday. And, you can't discount that. What's that worth? How much money could I have made yesterday? You say, well, take it to mechanic. Yeah, maybe that would alleviate some of that. But then there's that. It's, mechanic's going to want to have it for a few days. So they're 30 miles away, and my wife works a day job. So, drive in last minute at the end of the day and dump the truck off, and then come back a week later and not have my truck for a week. And then it's just not a good situation. So not to say I've made any changes in my plan or made any conclusions. However, it's a lot bigger issue than I had, expressed in that video. And don't get me wrong, I'm not naive enough to ever have thought that wasn't the case. That's the big problem. You make car payments, pretty much that's all you have to do. New cars have problems too, but kind of not usually this kind of stuff. Anyway, so I broke that off and I can't get it out. So I need to get a punch and punch it out from that end. That's why I'm hanging on to this socket, and then I need to put it away. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to clean up my tools. I left in such disgust yesterday after breaking that off that all my tools are still everywhere. And so I have to clean up the tools and then clean up the shop a bit. And I'm going to get some production work going here. The urns are 99% done. Find some little feet. I have a bin here. It has a bunch of little hardware and stuff. So find some feet for them. And they still need a finish, but that finish hasn't been decided upon. I have to cut the plywood for the bottom, which means I need to clean this up so I've got a nice sheet of plywood over there that I need to run through the table saw for that. So I need space. Planer's got to go, all kinds of stuff. So that's today's plan. I want to get into some production here and get some lumber cut up and make a difference on that. So that's today. Oh, this evening, kind of going out on a limb this evening with the bee club, our local bee club. I've taken on an idea to do a monthly novice session. We had novice sessions pre-COVID. What we would do is we would have a half-hour meeting before the main meeting started every month. So the novices would meet in the meeting room, at 7 o'clock, and then the main meeting would start at 7:30. And that was a great idea, and everybody who attended really was thankful for that. A couple of shortcomings there. Half an hour is not very much time, and the other one is in the meeting room, and I was guilty of this. People were arriving after 7 o'clock, preparing for the 7:30 meeting, and it was kind of noisy, and they'd have to always say, "Okay, everybody, you have to be quiet because we're having a meeting over here in the corner." And I was guilty because I arrive early and I want to visit with the people there before the meeting starts. So that was a difficulty too. And I tried to be good, but then you get in the corner, you talk quiet and stuff, and you really shouldn't be, but you can't help it. They get beekeepers. How are they going to not talk about bees, right? So what I decided to do was to have a meeting on a separate night, once a month, for the novices in the association, and just do it on Zoom. I'm a good probably 40 miles from, yeah, I'm Canadian talking miles, but I'm kind of old, so that's what happens, from the meeting venue. And so I don't really want to drive in for two meetings regularly. So I said, well, we got this Zoom subscription. Why don't we just do it on Zoom? So we decided we're going to try that out, and I'm hosting the first one this evening. So I hope it goes well. Honestly, I'm just going to wing it because I want the format I want is I don't just want a free for all, because that just gets too big and there's too many questions and too many things to talk about. So I want a kind of a theme each month, and I want to talk about, initially I was thinking the next 45 days, I'm thinking the next 60 days. So we're going to talk about February, March in a beekeeper's life, what the novices should be expecting, what they should be preparing for, what they should be watching for, all that kind of thing. So keep that context. I'm going to be receiving questions about whatever they have questions about, but I'm going to categorize those into time frames. So if somebody wants to know about winter wraps, then I'm just going to put that in the list. And when it comes to, the August meeting, perhaps, then we'll talk about winter wraps. And then that'll cover August, September. So you can start wrapping your bees in September. So anyway, that's what I'm doing tonight. And hopefully it goes well. I'm sure everybody will appreciate it. And I hope we can build a very strong session, a series of sessions. And yes, I did actually commit to having sessions during the summer. I figure, I can take a few hours out of an evening during the summer months, even though the association maybe isn't meeting at that time. So I'm going to try that, take that time, because I feel, especially new beekeepers, I feel that we go through the whole year of having meetings every month, and then when the beekeeping season comes along, it's we don't have any meetings. Now, having said that, we do have a mentorship program, so that is where the new beekeepers need to fill in the blanks, get with their mentor, get their relationship with their mentor going. And that's another thing, mentorship. We talk about new beekeepers needing and having mentors. I think as your new beekeeper, you probably need your mentor a lot more and a lot more often. However, I don't believe that there's ever a time in your beekeeping career that you don't need to have a mentor. You need to have a mentor you can discuss things with, even if it's bouncing ideas, even if it's bouncing off problems or different strategies or something like that. So if if a person is an experienced beekeeper and they don't have a mentor, I got to wonder about that. I think they're missing out because they're not having that relationship and not growing in that way. And obviously in that situation, that beekeeper really is comfortable that they know everything they need to know. It's basically it. And I don't think this is a craft where you can get to that point. You really need that mentorship continuously. And maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I'm like 8 seasons behind me, and I absolutely need my mentor. And I'm so thankful that I have a good one. He's very generous with his time. He's genuinely interested in what's going on in my apiary. He'll call me, "Hey, so how's the bees?" And he's a busy guy. He's not like just not doing anything. He's a busy guy, but he does that, and not every day, but he's done that, and then that really makes me feel good that he feels engaged with my progress and my success. So okay, so that's, I think, a description of today and what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe I'll get some rest. I'm very tired. I've been up on meetings every night for quite some time, and some of them are just YouTube live chats. I've got to curtail that. I'm just getting so tired. I'm kind of old, and I'm not putting up with that very well. My body's just getting dragged down. So I need to try to have a little self-control that way. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow, hopefully. And in the meantime, take care and have fun. Quite often in my woodworking, I'm finding that these small clamps are my go-to. And you can see this has definitely had its share of use. Glue on it, everything. One of the things this clamp is good for, I have actually a number of these, I've maybe got 4 or 6 of them, is if you're assembling beehive frames and you get an end bar that splits or something, you can glue that and just clamp it with this little clamp. They're great. They're easy to manage. They move well. They're easy to handle with one hand. So I wanted more of those. Guess what? No longer available. This one is the same, but a longer bar. Okay, so that is often, I really need to get more of those because I only have, I think, 2 of these, and that's the clamp of choice for so many projects as well. So I ordered these. This is the replacement, and it seems okay. It should work fine. That's the shorter version. They're not quite as, they're beefier here, and maybe people were stressing those clamps and they're breaking because these are beefier here and here. But one of the nice things about this clamp is that it's not real beefy there. You can actually get it into a small space if you need to. This is quite thin here. So that's really nice. It's one of the nicest things about them. Well, not so much anymore. Overall, they're really the same length with the grip part. And I found a deal on Amazon for 2 packs of 4. So I bought 2 packs of 4 of these. There's the second pack that I've kind of opened already. And so I'm very happy. Now I have more of these smaller ones. I will be looking for the longer ones as well. This is what they call a 6-inch clamp. I think a 6-inch clamp will clamp a 6-inch piece. That will clamp a 6 3/4-inch piece. And that will clamp a little more than 6 3/4. So, then we have the longer one, which is probably They might call that a 12-inch clamp. I might call it a 13-inch clamp. You know, so that's the one. I need to get a few more of those now, because quite often I want more than 6 3/4. So that's clamps, and you know, just like you know, fishing tackle and bacon, you can have enough clamps, but you can't have too many. So you got to have lots of clamps. Sometimes you see my clamp stash here in the shop, and you might think, oh, that's a lot of clamps. You get in the middle of a glue up, it's not that many clamps, and I'm often wanting for more, and sometimes more specific clamps. And this is kind of my go-to clamp, and again, I don't know what they call this as far as size. It's pretty good size. It's the second largest. I have some really long ones. I have 4 really, really long ones like this. I like the Irwin Quick Grips. They're very easy to use. They're kind of mid-price. They're not the most expensive. The problem with them is the mechanism. When you clamp something tight, after enough use, they won't hold tight anymore. I've got one around here that won't hold tight, and I should throw it in the garbage. I grab it way too often. So anyway, often, you know, this is probably one of the tightest clamps I have, save for like a pipe clamp. This will clamp 600 pounds pressure in the jaws, and you can see on the packaging that this clamp that I just bought, that's rated for 140 pounds. So it really depends on what you're doing. And, you know, if you're clamping a beehive frame, an end bar or something, you can do it like this, but it's just a big, ugly clamp for that. Nice feature of these is they're spreader clamps. You take that head off, move it to this end, so then you can pull things apart. So anyway, that's clamps. There's certainly a lot. So here's another one. This is another Irwin Quick Grip. Quick Grip is not, it's just a clamp, right? It's just a one-handed clamp of different sizes. So this is, you can see the jaw is different, and the bar is smaller. I think this is about a 250 pound or 300 pound clamp. It also has the reversible spreader feature on it. So that's a really good clamp. Sometimes these pads on these big ones, you can take those off, and it actually has a lock here. I don't know, to keep it from pivoting. See how it doesn't pivot now? And now it'll pivot a little bit. That's a gimmick I never pay attention to. This is the same as that one. It's just not as long. So that's as long as that one is. So again, lots of clamps, but you know, quite often you run out of clamps. So it's just the way it goes. It's Friday, February 10, 2023. And it's been one of those weeks that just kind of flown by. I had a bunch of meetings this week in the evening, presentations, things like that. Last evening I kind of had to myself, and of course I watched YouTube. Today, had to go to town today, and I did a really nice honey delivery. Boy, I got a nice order for honey. So I delivered that and a couple more errands in town. And then I came home and I started cutting lumber. You can see I'm covered in man glitter here. The sawdust, of course, that's man glitter. I've been keeping the old radial arm saw busy. Bring material up to the outside this overhead door, drag it in here, and then use my fancy new stop system to cut my lumber to length. And boy, did I cut a lot of lumber. The risers for the pallets, I cut a lot of those. I need to buy more 2x4s though, because I used some of my 2x4s for my project here. So I ran myself out. And then I cut 1x8s in runner length, and that'll make 2 runners plus a 1/2 inch shim that I can use for the covers. And so that's basically a runner. The runners don't have to be a particular width. I try to make them 3.5, 3.25. Anything over 3 I'm happy with. These are 3 5/16, I think. And I think that's it for now. Sorry, there's not much going on this week, but hopefully on the weekend and next week there will be more going on in here. And I need to buy more lumber, so we have to figure out how much more and then go place an order. So we're gonna go in and enjoy the evening now, Friday evening together, and that will be it for this week. So thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Take care and have fun.